The MMA India Show. Hey guys, welcome back to the MMA India Show. Sorry there for the small technical glitch, but we are back now with Gurdarshan, Gary Saint Mangat, Saint Lion, and who was there ringside at UFC 229. Gary's a really good friend of ours. He's been on the show a couple of times, and he does have some of his own news, very big news, which he's going to break in some time. We're not saying anything right now. We're going to allow him to tell us when we can break that news, but we're very happy for him nevertheless. Gary, how you doing? Can you hear us, Gary?
Just trying to get myself back together.
Okay, you survived the Las Vegas streets?
Yeah, busy, man. It was a crazy vibe over there.
So before we get to the main, of course, the post-main events, you want to tell us a little about the fights before that? Like Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis was such a good fight, but it got overshadowed. I'm just going to have to do it like this for now, so everybody can see you. So first things first, like I said, the Anthony Pettis, Tony Ferguson fight seemed to be overshadowed by what happened afterwards. You want to tell us ringside, since you were ringside, how it was, the Anthony Pettis, Tony Ferguson fight? Because, you know, there seemed to be some yo-yoing over there. Tony Ferguson did go down for a couple of, more than a couple of seconds. And it really seemed to be an out-and-out battle till the time Anthony Pettis, what was it technically? It was a doctor stoppage. He had to stop. The doctor stopped him, right?
Yeah, see, we really didn't know what was going on. Like, that was a really confusing one. We saw Tony crying on the ground. We saw Pettis just kind of doing his thing. We didn't, like, we're like, how did Tony lose? All of us thought we thought Tony lost somehow. And, like, me, Tony, Connor, we're all part of the same management. So I'm with my managers, and they're just upset. They don't know what happened and what's going on. You see Tony on the ground just crying with Eddie, and then all of a sudden realize Tony won, and yeah, it was a crazy situation. The thing is, when you're watching these fights live, you do miss a lot. Like yesterday, I watched even Connor fight once I got home, and there's a lot of things that you don't see when you're sitting there right there live, and there's a lot of things you don't see when you're watching it on TV. So you get a lot of different perspectives because the camera's not telling you what to watch; your own eyes are telling you what to catch. The same thing with the Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis fight. A lot of the fight was on the other end of the cage. So once again, I watched that today again, and it was making more sense. It was a very good technical way. It was the fight that kind of set the pace. Actually, the Derek Lewis knockout actually was probably the loudest of the night. That knockout kind of set the place on fire, and nobody was really expecting it. So that really set the tone for the night, was that knockout that came out of nowhere. And then the Anthony Pettis fight, and yeah, it did get overshadowed, man. I thought it was an amazing fight. Two crazy styles, doing cartwheel kicks, and just like crazy styles, man. And I knew that fight was going to get overshadowed. I knew people weren't focusing on how amazing of a stylistic fight that was, and I was truly excited for that one. And did watch it for what it was, and it was amazing. I think they're both amazing people. I thought Anthony Pettis showed up. He was kind of like the old WC version of himself, which was really cool. He was risking things. He was doing stuff for the fans. He's taking risks in a fight. It was just sad with the whole hand situation, and good call by the coach. It's two different situations. You got some coaches would have let their guy keep fighting on. Some coaches will step in, depends on what kind of relationship they have. My coaches personally would have just let me keep fighting, but a lot of coaches would have let their fighter keep fighting. But I totally understand from Duke Roof's side of why he did that.
So once it's known that a fighter has broken his hand, is it not the doctor's call totally? Is it the coach's call?
I think it is the coach's call. I think if you do break your hand in a fight, you're honestly just trying to hide it more than anything. Like, I know that people have, like, torn their hamstrings and stuff. They'll say it, unless it's, like, a real visible thing, which you won't really see from a hand break. Like, you know, we've seen fights with guys with their forearms severed, and they've kept fighting. And they've just kept coming out. Uriah Faber and one of his, which one, was it the Jose Aldo fight? I'm not sure. Both his hands were, like, they broke or something, and he kept fighting the whole fight. So there are those situations. I think it really does come down to the coach's call, and the fighter's call. It also comes down to the fighter.
Yeah. Now, coming to the, it was an amazing fight, and like you said, the Derek Lewis fight was amazing. We had in Mumbai, we had organized all of the MMA fans in a pub, so we were watching it, of course, Sunday morning. It was Sunday morning here, and everybody, it was just an amazing atmosphere here as well, especially with the Derek Lewis knockout coming. But that was always you knew it could happen anytime. He just had to connect cleanly, and he saw the opening, and he connected. Even though you always thought, is he gonna be able to keep standing on his feet? Because knowing Derek Lewis, like he says himself, his cardio isn't the best in the world. But an amazing fight, and like you said, it just set the tone. And Dominic Reyes, of course, you can say whether was it eventually a TKO, or was he saved? Was it a decision? Was he saved by the bell, or did they give Dominic Reyes a TKO over OSP, or was it a decision?
I think it was a TKO. I believe it was.
Okay.
I actually can't remember.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, Anthony Pettis and Tony Ferguson, they both were such warriors and enjoying the fight, so it was unfortunate. Now, coming to the Khabib Conor fight, now, of course, full disclosure, whether people know or not, you are represented by the same management as Conor,
Yeah.
So, just so people know. So, what I found amazing was, of course, events afterwards overshadowed what happened in the octagon. But what was happening in the octagon was also amazing because it was a very technical fight. And though Khabib did seem to be, having the upper hand, but Conor was effective a lot of times in stuffing or, trying to do what he could do or, what he had trained for in the camp. Can you tell us a little about the fight? And technically, what do you think was on Conor's mind? Because, everybody knew where the fight, who was going to try to do what, even though we saw Khabib, in the third round, standing and exchanging. I don't know if he was just trying to catch his breath. And I think that was the first or second round. Was it the second round where he got off that shot straight through the middle where it seemed like Conor got caught off guard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the third round.
Yeah. Was it the third or second? I think it was the second. Anyways, so you want to walk us through the fight a little before we talk about the after?
Yeah, I'll walk you guys through the fight, but then, yeah, the fight is its own thing, which is so crazy. But the whole atmosphere that led up to that fight is a completely different story. Like, almost everything kind of mixes together. Like, it doesn't make sense without the other. So the fight in general, the fight in general, we knew what the game plans were. We know Conor's war games and, his mental side. But you kind of almost have to talk about this fight as a whole. So basically, when I arrived here on Thursday, it was already, the best way I put it was, I've been to 5 of Conor's fights now. I've been to every single one of his fights since his Jose Aldo fight. That was my first time in Vegas and Paradigm. They brought me down, and so I could witness it live and stuff like that. And so that was the first time I saw Irish crowds and stuff like that. So the whole scene, you can see people, you can see Ireland shows up. It's an insane vibe. It's a fun vibe. It's very cool. Conor wins. Crazy madness in the streets. Fun all around. People are celebrating. It's insane. Now we go to the Nate fight. We'll push forward to the Nate fight when he lost. Now he loses, and it's like a funeral. Everybody's quiet. But there's no fights breaking out or anything like that. Then we go to the second Nate fight, and now it's 50-50. Nate's fans are there, Conor's fans are there. It's still fun in the streets. Nate fans are kind of still having fun, but they're more kind of gangster vibe, where they're not taking Irish fans too serious, but it's still a fun time. Then we push forward to, but it's still a good time. Then we push forward to the New York one I wasn't there for. Then we push forward to the Mayweather fight. The Mayweather fight was like a fun weekend. Like, the vibe was electric. Everybody's talking about it in Vegas. Every corner has a poster of it. But it wasn't like a hostile vibe. It's like, dude, we're about to see a historic moment. You knew both guys were going to be winners in the end. You have Conor, nobody's really expecting Conor to win, so there isn't going to be really a lot of backlash. You know he's making $100 million. He's going to be set for life off of this. So it wasn't it was kind of like a fun freak show almost kind of type thing. Now we come to this event. A lot of things are said. A lot of political things are said. A lot of things are said about families, religions. It's running deep now. Now,
Yeah, before that also you had the whole Artem Lobov leading to the bus trolley
yeah,
incident as well.
yeah, so you got all the bus incidents. So there's a lot of deep personal stuff going on. It's not just a fight anymore. There's a lot of stuff. Khabib has remained quiet, and Conor has not. Conor has ripped him apart in um, every single press conference, every single lead up, every single interview he's done. Conan, to everything he's done for the lead up, countdowns. Anytime he was on the mic, he's ripping him in half, telling him he's gonna bounce his head off the canvas, this and this, talking about terrorist snitches and all this stuff. And so what I noticed was when I got there on Thursday, I always feel a vibe in the city, and I knew I was gonna feel this way. I knew it was gonna feel uncomfortable, and it's hard to describe that because, like, you felt uncomfortable. You knew something was building up. You knew something was going on. You knew something was gonna build up to it, but you just didn't know what. Then the press conference was there that day on Thursday, and you knew once again Khabib left after 15 minutes. He's like, I'm not staying. Then Conor came out and dove into him again. And so now more Irish fans are showing up. Now Friday is when it always peaks out. Saturday it peaks out, but Friday always builds up to a pretty high capacity of people that have shown up to the city for the fight. Thursday it's a pretty big crowd also. If you saw the press conference, a lot of Irish fans. But what I noticed was a lot of people were saying to me, they're like, I don't feel like there's a lot of Khabib fans here. People are like, I don't see a lot of Khabib fans. But we don't know what Khabib fans look like. We really don't. They don't have like an attire. They don't have Irish flags. They don't have Russian flags.
Yeah, and not all of them are wearing those big Khabib hats.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying to people. I'm like, guys, they're here. I'm telling you. You would see like the odd kid with it on and the odd kid with like a Khabib shirt on, but you didn't see like this entourage of people that had Khabib shirts on. You would see them odd here and there. So they could have been casual fans. They could have been Khabib fans. You never knew. Right? So, but Irish fans, you knew they had the capes on. They were hollering in the streets. They had beers in their hand. They had proper 12 in their hands, drinking it shot for shot. They had places set up. It was literally Ireland. And now the craziest thing was I was like, dude, they're quiet. They're going to stay quiet. Just like, I think it's just their persona. They're all going to stay quiet when things go off. When stuff happened after that fight, it's literally like it just kind of evolved. Like they just showed up out of nowhere. Like the Undertaker shows up out of the grave. Like they just came out of everywhere. And you were just like, and it just turned into chaos in that place. So you kind of almost have to build up that whole moment to be able to talk about this fight in whole. Fight from a technical standpoint, yeah, it was amazing and stuff. And the two game plans was one guy was going to stand and try to hit him with a straight left and keep it standing and kind of bounce his head off the canvas. That's what he kept saying over and over. And the other guy said he was going to humble him, was going to take him down, beat him down, wrestle him, and kind of drag it. And that's what Khabib said. Now, the first exchange when Khabib shot for the leg, Conor did defend well. I was impressed. He defended well. He defended almost 4 transitions where all of Khabib's other opponents, I feel, defend 1 or 2, and then they're caught at the bottom. But Khabib he doesn't give it up. He literally went from a low single, and just climbed his way up by climbing up a tree until he got what he wanted. He had to change up positions, and eventually he just ended up there. And that's kind of the whole thing about the fight. And I think once Conor kind of felt that, you could see it in his eyes. It's a look that we had never seen in his eyes, that like, shit, like this guy is like, it's a strength here. So I trained with one of the Russian fighters at Extreme that day. I trained with him on Friday before the weigh-ins. I was Extreme Couture, and he was one of the Russian fighters or something. So he was like Dagestani also. Dude, I rolled with this guy, and this guy felt like he was 205 pounds, and he was a 135 pounder. I'm thinking to myself, what is it in these guys? And he told me his history too. He's like, since the age of 6, I've been wrestling, and told me his training programs out in the mountains and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is like, they're bred this way. Their fibers evolve different. There's a different strength that takes over them as they become mature men, as they grow. Their body grows into a different kind of strength because the fibers have been trained to become that way. And if a 135er felt like a light heavyweight, I can only imagine what Khabib felt like when Conor was on the bottom of him. It's just this different, relentless style with simple techniques and stuff like that. It just sucks the strength out of you. And that was basically the game. And then just seeing that was it overhand right or overhand left? And just like knowing, people always say that people that have good ground skill can dictate fights.
Yeah, it was overhand. It was an overhand right.
It was overhand right.
Yeah.
So I agree that people that know the ground dictate fights, but they also have to be somewhat comfortable in their stand-up. And that's what I believe Khabib is. He hit him with that overhand, and it's like the best shot of the fight was from the wrestler that we were calling.
Yeah.
Right? And you could literally see round by round the crowd quieting down more. And when Conor would kind of have like a minute, I think it was round 3 where most of the fight was standing. I think it was round 3. So yeah, he did get caught in the second round. Round 3 is where Conor kind of like, he pushed more. That crowd was waking up again.
But do you think round 3, it was also more stand-up and Conor was able to push because Khabib allowed that. He didn't seem to be attempting to take it to the ground in most of round 3 because he seemed to be almost, I don't know if you can call it resting, but he seemed to put the foot off the pedal to chill, and because I think he was confident of his stand-up game as well. So it didn't go to the ground because I think Khabib didn't attempt to make it to go to the ground in round 3.
The round ended on the ground though.
Yeah, it did end on the ground, but before that, he didn't really be attempting to take it to the ground or anything at that time.
I almost think Khabib wanted to suck the life out of him by standing in front of him, walking forward while Conor was hitting him with the shot. It also felt like Conor didn't have the same power in his shots. I think the reason for that is because of the shock his body took in round 1. That he just didn't have that pop after that. He was trying to let it go, but they were just not coming off the way they used to come off. He also, I don't think he wanted to commit as much to the power because then you leave yourself open for more takedowns. So I think maybe something with his mind not to commit too much to the cross where he could be open for a takedown. And you're just trying to do kind of like, we call it pop shot. So he's kind of pop shotting him and just kind of sneaking in what he could, but I don't think anything was really damaging him. He was kind of just walking through it. And it was so crazy to watch him just walking forward, putting him down. And then next thing you know, Conor would find himself on the cage, and there we were back in the same situation. He would just find himself up against the cage because there would be nowhere else to go. And that was kind of the story of the fight. Is basically, it was just a crazy performance, man. It was answered a lot of questions and a lot of interesting questions to come.
So do you think after the very first round, it seemed like, if you looked at the two guys, Khabib and Conor, Khabib was fresh. He seemed to have a very confident, the fight's going my way kind of look, whereas Conor seemed to have a deer in the headlights, almost like like the same look that he got in the Nate Diaz fight.
And we had never, that one, the deer in the headlights for the Nate Diaz fight was because he got caught with that 1-2 and it dazed him.
Yeah.
This was like, felt this pressure and this strength and this technique and this thing that he had trained on for, knowing this was exactly what's going to happen and not having an answer for it and wondering, shit, what do we do now? And kind of like, I saw something just before we came on that there was even a point when Conor and him exchanged words.
Yeah.
And him saying it's all business, like he was kind of like trying to calm the situation. I'm not sure, but kind of like Conor kind of like, it's all business, man. Like it was almost kind of like, just kind of letting him know, listen, don't take it too personal right now. Like don't get too crazy with this. You know what I mean? It's interesting that he would have said that in that situation. I think it was round 3 or something. I can't remember what round it was, but it was in the later round. And it kind of like, you've never seen that situation either where if you usually hear that, that means somebody's trying to simmer down a situation, right? Like, it's all business, man. Don't take it personal. And it was really interesting. And I just saw that a little while ago of people pulling up that clip.
So now tell me one thing. Like we said, a lot of stuff had been said. Trolleys had been thrown through buses. Khabib, of course, I don't know, I'm not sure if he actually slapped Artem, but he did hold him by the back of the neck, and they did surround him over there. So there has been a lot of bad blood, which started, Conor was arrested. So, and so you can't just say it's business. was it just business after, because like Daniel Cormier pointed out, some people don't take that stuff as well as other people,
Yeah,
it
the other religious views and stuff, right? Like if somebody said all that stuff about me and my family, I would have been the same situation. I would have taken it too hard too.
So exactly, so does Connor not realize that he does make it much more than business, and he makes it personal, because he does make it personal. If you see like Jose Aldo, that was a large part of his victory was that he got inside Jose Aldo's head. Of course, he wasn't able to get into Nate Diaz's head.
He knows he's doing that.
Yeah.
He knows he's doing that, and that's usually what mentally breaks these guys. That this guy is just so tormented them with emotional abuse, I guess you can almost say.
Yeah.
That these they're with their minds not together. From all the way from Eddie Alvarez calling him like a bro that's just trying to make some money, talking about like him not having anything and him just being broke, to Jose Aldo telling him what his people should be doing. I think he doesn't have control of it. Like he doesn't control it well, but he's also such a businessman that he knows he's selling a fight and making it so personal, where he just keeps going and he feeds off the crowd. You can always see it in his press conferences. He feeds off the energy, and if they react to it, that's why I almost think, as much as he said a lot of things at the press conference in New York, he didn't look as comfortable because he didn't have the fans reacting. He didn't have fans there. They weren't allowed in. So he didn't have this energy to see what was making them excited and what wasn't. Where the one at Park MGM Thursday, on Thursday, his fans were there, but Khabib wasn't there. But he just kept feeding off of it, just kept going, and just kind of like just it's what he does, man. It's what he does, and yeah, the thing is, when you do that, the consequences and the retribution of things is what he's gonna be dealing with now. I don't know how much he really cares about all that stuff, but a lot of words that were said are now they're reminding him, remember when you said this, remember when you did this, remember when you said about this about my people, remember when you said you were going to bounce my head off the counter, remember all this stuff. And that's kind of the risk you take by pushing the fight on to such a personal place, because fighting is dangerous, man. You can win or lose. When you lose, there's going to be plenty of reminders. There's a lot of haters, and they're going to remind you of everything you said when you're trying to sell a fight. So that's kind of what's going on now. It's going to be interesting to see.
And let's remember that the UFC did sell the fight by showing the bus footage.
But you know what? The UFC is just as blamed in this situation. Like Dana White, all these guys, they never stepped in once, saying, "Listen, man, like you're pushing the religious boundaries. You're talking about Islam, and you're talking about you're pressing alcohol to him and telling him to take a drink. He doesn't drink. He's a Muslim man." And this. Like, they never stepped in once. So a lot of everything that broke down after the fight, I blame a lot of it on Dana White.
Yeah, and Dana White has previously said that religion doesn't have any place in the octagon when Yoel Romero, Yoel Romero.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but I think this is a completely different case. You're kind of bashing a religion. You're bashing views. You're going after politicians and stuff, and you're playing a completely different line here. Like, the man isn't even saying nothing back. Almost every single thing that's been said to him, just kept saying October 6th, and you know what? He lived up to his words. October 6th, he did what he had to do, and it was just a crazy vibe in the arena, man. You could just see the shift after that first round. Like, it was hard to even focus on the fight because it was just so much madness. Like, you're just watching this live and you're trying to discuss it as it's happening in the moment. You're like dropping your drink. You're losing your shit. I'm sitting with my management who manage him, so you're watching. I'm my seat. Like, Artem is like literally 2 feet away from me. Artem, George Lockhart, the guy that was with him when the whole bus attack happened, the guy from the Brave Federation, I always forget his name. So all these guys were all there. We're all sitting together, and so you're just trying to take it in for what it is. And that's what I said when I came home yesterday. I watched the fight for the first time properly, and it's just a completely different experience. And you see way more than what was happening because there's so much chaos happening that was happening in that moment, because you're kind of like shocked. You kind of don't know what's going on. The fans are shocked. Yeah, there's just a different tempo. There's a lot to process when you're sitting there live.
So what happened afterwards? Now getting to that, of course. Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, see, there's no justification or anything, but of course, everybody's human. Was that and there are two viewpoints. One which says Khabib won, he should have just let it rest over there. The other is, listen, you lit a match, there's going to be a fire. There's going to be consequences when you take it that much over the line, and Conor had done that. And whatever in the lead up, of course, the Khabib's guys did surround Artem as well, and there was a lot of back and forth. A lot of stuff, like we said, had happened. Now was, of course, after all the talk about family, religion, had he pushed them too far? So can we say that, okay, it's very hard to say either way whether Khabib should have controlled himself or whether he just had enough. And if you see the footage, you can see Dillon Danis still telling him, come on outside, come on. He's calling him out, like, come on.
Exactly. So that's where I say, like people think it was just like this fueled up stuff where Khabib just exploded. Khabib didn't just randomly explode. There was stuff coming from Conor's corner where they were calling him a Muslim rat throughout the fight, where he was literally. Khabib, I think, even talked to Dillon Danis at one point. Like, I chilled with Dillon Danis also. He's a great guy. He's a chill guy. But like I say, man, the UFC is almost like, go ahead, keep doing it. Like, I don't think these guys knew where to draw the line because there was nobody telling them where to draw the line. So you're in the corner and you're still calling the guy a Muslim rat. That is racist. Where Conor was saying this shit in press conference and nobody was stepping up and nobody was stepping in like, dude, you gotta calm down. Nobody said a thing. They just kept seeing the dollar signs of pay-per-view selling. Now you're in this hostile environment, this much anticipated fight, the action going on, and you're still saying this stuff. And Khabib heard it, and Khabib, even during holding Conor against the cage.
I don't think this word has come out yet. How do you? Did you hear it or do you know about it? Was it everybody?
It was going around. That's what happened. And then exactly what you're saying, when the fight ended, I guess Dillon was saying something. I'm not sure. That part I don't know, but the whole Muslim rat thing, I was hearing from quite a few sources out of Vegas. That's what was being said. That's what made Khabib jump over, and he's like, oh, I'll attack your ass too. And that's why he didn't go after Kavanaugh. He didn't go after Allen Rowdy. He went straight for Dillon because that's who he was hearing. And it was when Conor was pressed up against the cage, up against Vi's corner, and apparently Dillon was saying this stuff. And that's what made him explode towards Dillon Danis, not anybody else on the team. And that's when everything went down. So it wasn't everything that happened with the bus attack. It wasn't all the political stuff. It wasn't all the stuff that built up in the press conference from what Conor said. That stuff had been dealt with. He had beat Conor. I think he was content with that. It's what Dillon was saying, and it made him explode at that moment because there was so much. It's like, Conor's sitting on the ground, he's looking over at Conor's corner, and then I bet you Dillon said probably one more thing, which I don't know what he might have said at that moment, and that's what made him go jump that and go after him too. I know that Khabib's about that shit, so he doesn't own any of it. So like he was, Khabib even said like, you think like I'm gonna get my ass kicked when I get home. Like even Khabib's dad said, like you should have thought about that. There's women and children that sit in the front row sometimes, and you could have hurt a lot of people. So that was his own dad saying like, listen, man, you did something pretty stupid. You couldn't control yourself, and that shouldn't have happened. So that's what set off that riot. Was that stuff. And then what happened in the arena? Like what happened was, so when I was watching it yesterday, I saw that the camera zoomed up on the cage. So everybody thought that a lot of the mayhem was happening in the cage and just around the cage.
Yeah.
What people don't understand is how much was happening in the stands, because they zoomed up the camera, so they darkened the crowd. But to us who were there, we could still see everything. But on TV, they darkened the camera, so it was focused. It's kind of like when the entrances happen, they zoom up on it.
Yeah.
But you can still see the crowd. When you're there, you can see everybody still. It's just the way the camera's set up. So they did the same thing. There was fights breaking out in every part of the stands. Like it was insane watching. It got very hostile there, and like even weigh-ins, it was happening though. Even at the weigh-ins, there was a lot of fights breaking out. So you could, like I'm saying, there was a tempo being built. There was this weird, uncomfortable energy building as it went. Something was gonna happen. If Conor won, something was gonna happen. If Khabib won, something was gonna happen. I think fights were gonna break out regardless because they're already breaking out at the weigh-ins. And not like that situation set it up. It was a very hostile situation leading up to it. And I know that Brendan Shaw, like I didn't see this until just yesterday. He literally predicted all this. Where I had to get my wife out of there. Where I was like, this is gonna become dangerous because it spilled onto the streets. It was on the streets after, and this is the first time where like I saw situations where like where Irish people were almost certain. I'm gonna say certain Irish people. I'm not gonna say all of them. There are a lot of them that were still good. They're still amazing people. So I'm just gonna say select few. Every group has a bad select few, and we came across them. And there's videos on the internet making people think that they were all bad and that a lot of Khabib fans are bad, but they're not. There's a lot of good people that were there. Event was amazing with a lot of good people, but there was a select few that they came up to me and they're like, "You going for Khabib? Were you with Khabib?" There's no reason for them to think that other than because maybe because of the way I look. Like there's nothing where I was out and about outside T-Mobile Arena.
You mean you can't pass off as an Irish dude?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had to these guys. So one guy came up to me and said that, and then he's like, "He's a Khabib fan," and then he called two other of his guys, and you could tell they were drunk. And my wife's with me, and then we just kind of kept walking, and they were just kind of harassing for a little bit, and then I even told them, I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm actually with Conor. I'm actually part of his management." And then they're just like, they didn't see that they weren't gonna get a fight out of it, and then they just kind of left. And then I was just seeing those situations happening all the way back to the hotel with other people, and just seeing how different the streets had all of a sudden become. And then, but the weird thing was, as much as you were seeing fights on Instagram stuff, it was dead quiet. It was dead quiet really quick. And the last time I saw this was after the Nate fight. I didn't see that during the Mayweather fight, but like I said, because the Mayweather fight was still a fun spectacle thing. I think everybody won that night. Conor's party was still one of the biggest after parties that we had gone to, and they were still celebrating like they won. But after the Nate fight, it was very quiet. There was usually what happens is when Conor wins, they leave the stands. They have crazy dance parties inside the T-Mobile Arena, but where the concessions are and stuff. Coming down the escalators, coming down the stairs, they have their flag, they do their chants, do everything. There's a big party that spills out onto the front of T-Mobile Arena, but the security has to work extra hard to get them off there because they just want to celebrate and have fun. This time, other than the fights, stuff got really quiet real quick. Other than those situations that were kind of happening around. There weren't the big riot happened inside and around on the stands, but other than that, it seemed like it got quiet really quick. It was almost kind of eerie after a little while. So yeah, it was just kind of because I don't think Khabib has an after party. He doesn't drink. I don't think he has anything. I think they went right back to his house and they watched the fight, so he didn't really have anything going on. Conor's after party it didn't get canceled, but none of us really went because Conor went back to his place also. He didn't end up going to the after party. So nothing really kind of happened after. Everybody just kind of simmered down. We're happy to be back, and then we just kind of sat on our phones and just kind of saw everything that was breaking around on the streets of Vegas, and just kind of just trying to process it all. And just people were hitting my phone up, going, "Are you safe? Are you okay? Is everything?" I'm like, "Yeah, everything's cool, everything's fine." And we just kind of felt like it was best not to go onto the streets, because when you're there, you actually don't know how bad it really is because you're there in the moment. Where you guys were probably hearing the commentary on the pay-per-view and stuff, where they're like, there's fights breaking out. I don't know what they were telling you guys and what was being said.
They weren't telling us that fights were breaking out, but except for the main one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of stuff breaking out, and it did spill out onto the streets where it did get dangerous. And there's fights right outside where people were just getting knocked out left, right, and center. And it was dangerous, and you didn't know how much people had drank and what kind of stupid choices they were going to make, and how passionate they really were about what they were at. Like, everybody became a fighter in that moment. Very unskilled fighters, but they all became fighters in that moment. And there's a lot of Proper 12 running in a lot of people, and so.
Have you tried Proper 12, by the way?
I did try it, man. I did try it. Honestly, I loved it.
Okay, now tell us, what do you think should happen from here? We've seen a couple of polls online, and the majority thinks that Khabib should actually fight Tony Ferguson now, because this fight was, to a large extent one-sided, if I can say that. So Tony Ferguson should be, the one fighting Khabib, and Conor should not get an immediate rematch, if at all.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Also, Khabib and Tony Ferguson has been like a cursed fight.
Yeah.
That's come to be. So I don't know. I'm sure the UFC still remembers that. I remember Dana saying it like a little while ago that he's like, I'll never make this fight again. But he kind of has to now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very interesting fight. I feel like it's a very. I don't think the casual fans gonna be as interested, but the ones that actually follow the sport and enjoy stylistic fights are going to be very excited about this. Like you, me, like be very excited about it. As far as like drama and the trash talking, I think the build-up is going to be cringeworthy. Neither one of them can really talk trash. So you're gonna get a good fight. Don't expect Conor McGregor 2 million views per press conference kind of situation.
Yeah.
Not going to get any of that. So you're going to get a fight. You're going to get a martial arts fight, and that's what you ultimately want. And I think it's going to make for a very interesting fight between two very different stylistic matches that kind of collide. Now both guys are pretty comfortable on the ground and stuff. So if Pettis had won, I wouldn't have been as interested in that fight. I think Pettis and Khabib are pretty similar people when it comes to kind of styles in a certain way. But this Tony Ferguson fight and him, I'm very interested. But the interesting thing was that Tony wasn't calling out Khabib after. He kept wanting the Conor fight. Even though Conor lost, he's like, I'm ready to fight Conor, but he won the fight. Why would he not want to go after the champ? It's like these guys still want the money fights. Like they know that there's more money in a Conor fight than to fight for the lightweight title and become the champ. I was kind of seeing that happening. I thought that was kind of interesting, where like people are like, oh, Khabib and Tony should be next, and they get Tony on the mic, and Tony's like, Conor, if you're ready, you're a pussy, I'll come after you. But nobody was making that fight.
Do you think that's also because they want that money fight before maybe they think Conor goes away?
Yeah, but Conor just signed for 6 fights, but who knows if he's going to get through those 6 fights. They do. That's why I'm saying the next one will be so interesting, because the build-up, the trash talk and everything, what level is Conor going to take it to? How, like, if you even notice for this one, he didn't want to do as much media. He didn't want to do as much stuff. But when he did, he sold it. He did what he had to do. I think the media that he did is more than enough what caused this fight to be what it is. But yeah, he didn't do as much because he just wanted to be focused. I think he knew what challenge was ahead of him. He took this guy way more seriously than Eddie Alvarez or anybody. So I'm interested to know how he'll approach future fights now. Because, for the fan, it's only fun to invest yourself in a fight when the trash talk meets the result, right? So when you hear he's going to finish him in 1, he's going to do this, and then he goes and does it, you're like, holy shit, I need to watch this. But when all of it kind of falls apart, and the complete opposite of what you had been telling everybody, I'm just wondering, like, what you're going to see and what kind of reaction you're going to get from future build-up of his fights now. That's what I'm most interested in.
Do you think the Conor-Nate Diaz fight can still pull in a lot of eyeballs, because people like me still want to see that fight, whether Nate wins or loses to Dustin, but I would still pay to see that fight.
Yeah, you would, but there's always going to be those people that are going to try to put it down, right? Because it makes sense, but then once again, we're talking about people just chasing the money fights again, right?
Yeah.
Are these guys trying to get back to the title? Are they trying to get another shot at the title, or are they just trying to bank on what they can and no one really cares about the title?
Well, if Nate beats Dustin, then it does become a path to the title.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're right. It's interesting. It depends on, I feel like half the roster has one goal and the other half the roster has another goal.
Yeah.
It's sad that they don't meet together. If you get the titles fight, you also make the big money. It's actually not the case. There's certain names that will pull in more money than a title fight will. That's kind of the situation that the UFC has created.
Yeah, and also Anderson Silva has shown an interest in fighting Conor. That would be a huge super
Yeah,
fight
exactly.
as well.
Exactly. So that's another fight that makes kind of no sense, but people would want to see it.
So we could be in a situation where Conor now has. Was this fight part of the 6-fight deal, or was this just? Is this the last one on the? Or was this the last one on the contract?
I think they renewed the contract. So what they do is, I think it does count. I think he didn't finish his last contract, and what you should do is, like, including myself, is say I'm signed for 6 fights, you'll sit down after 4 and renegotiate, depending on where your progress and what you're pulling in. So I think they were probably not finished the first contract, but they sat down.
So let's say this is the first of 6, so he's got 5 fights left now.
Yeah, 5 fights left.
So let's say Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, if he wants that to happen, maybe GSP sometime, and you've got 2 left after that if he finishes the contract.
And also, like one of the greatest moves that management could have pulled was, now looking back on this whole situation, is to have renegotiated this contract, because it would have been a lot tougher to get what they're getting now after this weekend. But they signed it before, so I know Conor's getting a lot more regardless. So had they been like, dude, you just lost, man. Like, you got dominated. You're not worth it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could have brought down the price, but they renegotiated before you went in the cage, so that contract is still active now.
Yeah, and I think Conor, regardless, will still be a crowd puller for the next 5 fights at least. You know.
Of course. Yeah, of course. He will. He is a crowd puller. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to pull it in. The management team behind him knows how to do it too. He has a great force. It's one fight where he got dominated, and it is what it is. And now it's a matter of to see his next moves are going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting because he's Mystic Mac. He's the guy that can finish 2-1, his left straight, and all this stuff. And then you see this situation happen. It's one thing to go to like a position and lose, but to see it in this kind of fashion, we weren't surprised by the style that he was beat by. We knew this was the style the other guy was going to be in. Just to see that guy still stick to that same game plan and be able to pull it off, it's going to be it's interesting. Definitely is.
So, so we kind of have like a path for Khabib, which is Tony Ferguson, which is the fight to make. And Conor, of course, I think is, we're going to see what happens. And of course, with the whole situation of what the commission does, whether it fines Khabib, whether it, bans him for a couple of months or a year, that is yet to be seen, of course.
Yeah. I really don't think Khabib banned for anything, honestly. I don't think he should be banned, but the fact that it happened in a sanctioned Nevada State Athletic event is probably where he's going to get screwed in this situation. He did it in an event that's commissioned by them, where Conor attacked a bus that wasn't in a commissioned area. It's more so like, he had to go to the police station, he had to go to court, but this is a different situation, where Nevada might...
But does it matter that technically the fight had finished?
It doesn't. I don't think it matters. It's because the event is sanctioned by Nevada State Athletic, and that arena was under Nevada State Athletic Commission, and he is a fighter that was working under that commission. So it's like any guy that jumps, walking back to even his locker room, if he has slapped a fan, it would be the same thing. It would be the same situation. He's contracted under the Nevada State Athletic Commission to perform that thing. So that is, they take the liability, I believe, as the commission and almost everything. That's why Nevada is the one who appoints all the referees, they appoint all the doctors, the judges. It's all under their jurisdiction at that time.
Okay, so I guess we got to see what happens with that. So I think this has been a pretty nice, exhaustive conversation with you, Gary. And, we're always glad to have you with us, and, hopefully we'll get to chat again soon. And, of course, talk about you and your personal journey and what you're doing next very soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping to announce it very soon here. We're just trying to wait on the opponent, and then I can let you guys know which way I'm going next. And it'll be exciting. It seems like it was the right decision, and yeah, it'll be exciting to tell you guys.
Great. Well, we look forward to breaking the news as well with you once you give us the go-ahead and give us the details.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gary. Good night. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. So that was us chatting with Gurdarshan, Gary Singh, Mangat, who was there ringside, of course, and had a lot of details about what went on ringside, some of which we didn't know about, some specific racial stuff which was spoken about and thrown at Khabib as well. Let's see how much of this plays into the commission's decision on what they're going to do, because they did hold back Khabib's salary. I don't think it's been released yet. So let's see what happens. Of course, it was an amazing fight. All of the fights, were amazing. The whole lead up, unfortunately, what happened afterwards kind of overshadowed some of the the most amazing fights, like Ferguson and Pettis and Derek Lewis and Volkov, and even the Michelle Waterson Felix Herrig fight, and even OSP versus Dominic Reyes. The whole main card was amazing, but of course, all of us, including us, are primarily talking about what happened afterwards, because it is something big that happened that's always going to be talked about as an event, as something that happened and can shape the way MMA and UFC goes from here in dealing with things like this, because it's to be seen how they do deal with this, and whether they can do anything considering what happened in the lead up and what the commission will do. And Gary very rightly pointed out some technical details, like that the whole stadium and the fighter leading up even to the changing room afterwards is under the commission, and what happened when Conor threw the trolley through the bus wasn't. Blah blah blah, a lot of technical stuff. So I'm guessing everybody's thinking about how to deal with it, or if not, like we've seen a lot of times, the way of dealing with it is doing absolutely nothing. So whether something is done or not, and what fight happens, it's all, I don't want to say exciting, because that kind of makes what happens, you don't want to legitimize what happened, So, well, having said that, we really look forward to seeing Khabib fight next. Whether it's with Tony or somebody else, we really look forward to seeing him fight next, and we really look forward to seeing what steps Conor takes next, because he still has 5. He just re-signed his contract. He still has 5 fights left on the contract, like Gary told us, and let's see what goes on from there. But thank you, all of you, for joining the MMA India show with me, your host, Praveen Dabas, again, and we will be back with you soon with all the chit-chat and breaking news. Take care. Cheers. Bye.